A quiet, overnight decision that changed everything. In the early hours of the morning, while most of the country was asleep, something unusual happened in Washington. There was no press conference, no breaking news banner, no speech from the podium, and yet a decision was made that could quietly affect millions of older Americans. Shortly after 2 a.m., internal confirmations from the U.S. Treasury revealed that a revised structure for the $2,000 tariff rebate checks had officially been approved, not announced loudly, not celebrated publicly, simply approved and set into motion behind the scenes. This matters because decisions like this are rarely handled overnight unless something has shifted from discussion into action. When policy moves in silence, it often means the groundwork has already been laid, the review has already happened, and the system is preparing to move forward. For seniors living on fixed incomes, this was not just another government headline, it was a signal that the pressure many older Americans feel every month at the grocery store, the pharmacy, the utility bill, is finally being reflected in internal data and decision-making. What makes this moment different is not just the dollar amount, it's the way it happened. Quiet approvals usually mean administrative permission has been granted, the kind that allows federal systems to begin working without waiting for political theater. This was not about promises, it was about acknowledgement. And for seniors who have been stretching every dollar, that acknowledgement alone marks a meaningful shift. This was the moment the conversation changed, not publicly, but practically. Where the money comes from, and why that matters. To understand why this $2,000 payment moved forward quietly, you have to understand where the money comes from. And this is where many headlines get it wrong. This program is not funded by a brand new stimulus bill. It is not pulling money from future debt. Instead, it is funded by existing tariff revenue, money already collected from imported goods entering the United States. That distinction matters more than most people realize. Because the revenue already exists, the Treasury does not need to restart the entire legislative process every time adjustments are made. There is no need for weeks of floor debates or high-profile votes just to refine eligibility. Once categories are approved internally, the system can move. That's exactly why this decision didn't arrive with fireworks. It wasn't political theater, it was administrative clearance. For seniors, this difference is critical. Traditional stimulus checks often get stuck in long political standoffs. This program operates inside an existing structure. Fewer hurdles, fewer delays, less noise. But that does not mean instant money. Think of it like water already sitting behind a dam. The question is not whether the water exists. It does. The question is when the gates open and who is allowed through first. Last night's approval did not open the floodgates. What it did was authorize the machinery to begin moving. Eligibility models, record matching, and payment verification. That's why this moment feels different, not louder, just more real. For seniors who have heard promises come and go, this isn't about excitement, it's about credibility. Existing funding changes the timeline conversation entirely, and it quietly puts this program on more solid ground than many past proposals. That foundation is what makes the next steps possible. Why seniors suddenly moved to the front of the line. For a long time, programs like this were designed with one main assumption in mind, that working households would feel the fastest impact from rising costs and trade-related price increases. And on paper, that made sense. But behind the numbers, something else was happening. New internal data reviewed by the Treasury showed that seniors, especially those living on fixed incomes, were absorbing financial pressure faster and with far fewer options to adjust. While prices were climbing steadily, income for retirees stayed exactly the same. Groceries didn't pause, utility bills didn't wait, prescription copays crept higher, small increases began stacking on top of each other, quietly turning monthly budgets into constant balancing acts. For working-age households, there is sometimes room to maneuver, an extra shift, a side job, a temporary adjustment. Seniors rarely have that flexibility. When income is fixed, every price increase lands harder and lasts longer. That reality finally showed up clearly in the data. Instead of asking only who technically qualifies, decision-makers began asking a more human question. Who has the least room to recover if help is delayed? And when that question changed, priorities changed with it. This wasn't about politics or headlines. It wasn't about rewarding one group over another. It was about recognizing vulnerability and acknowledging that retirement today looks very different than it did decades ago. Seniors weren't moved forward because they were louder. They were moved forward because the numbers could no longer ignore their situation. This was the moment the system stopped treating everyone as equal on paper and started paying attention to real-life pressure. That shift is subtle, but it's foundational, and it explains why seniors are no longer quietly waiting at the back of the line. How the review system was quietly rebuilt. What changed next was not just who was being considered, it was how the entire review process worked. Instead of treating every household exactly the same, the Treasury quietly rebuilt the system behind the scenes. The goal was not to complicate things or play favorites, but to better match real financial pressure with review timing. The result was a structure that functions like priority lanes. The first lane is reserved for those with the least financial flexibility. This includes many seniors who rely almost entirely on Social Security retirement benefits, supplemental security income, disability payments, or survivor benefits. These are households where nearly every dollar already has a purpose the moment it arrives. When a $30 or $40 increase in groceries can throw an entire month off balance, waiting longer for relief simply creates more harm. That's why these files now move through review sooner. The second lane includes households that still qualify but have slightly more room to manage expenses temporarily. Their reviews continue steadily, just without the same urgency. The third lane is for situations that require additional verification, higher incomes, mismatched records, or more complex financial profiles. These cases take longer not because they are less important, but because accuracy matters before money moves. For many seniors, there is an unexpected advantage here: stability. Long-standing direct deposit accounts, consistent benefit sources, and unchanged personal information often mean fewer obstacles during review. Being in a priority lane does not mean instant payment. It means earlier attention. And in a system this large, earlier attention can make a meaningful difference. This redesign didn't happen loudly, but it reshaped how seniors are seen, not as numbers, but as people with limited room to wait. What priority really means, and what it does not. When people hear that seniors have been moved into a priority position, it's natural for expectations to rise quickly. Priority sounds like speed. It sounds like checks printing immediately, but that's not how this system works, and understanding that distinction matters. Priority does not mean instant payment. What it means is earlier review, not immediate results. Every case still moves through several required steps. Eligibility models must finish running. Records must be matched across federal databases. Payment methods, whether direct deposit or mailed checks, must be verified. Only after those pieces line up does distribution begin. For some seniors, this process may feel smooth and quiet. For others, it may take longer than expected. Two people with similar incomes can experience very different timelines because of something as small as an old address, a closed bank account, or a name change that hasn't been updated everywhere. These delays are not punishment. They are caution. When public money is involved, the system is designed to move carefully. Accuracy comes before speed, and while that can feel frustrating, it is also what protects people from errors, lost payments, or future complications. The key shift here is not that seniors jump the line instantly, it's that they are no longer waiting unseen while the system focuses elsewhere. Earlier attention means problems are identified sooner, records are checked earlier, corrections happen before the final stage instead of after. In a system as large as this one, that difference matters. Priority is not a promise of timing. It is a recognition of vulnerability and a decision to stop letting fixed-income households absorb the cost of waiting longer than everyone else. That recognition may be quiet, but it changes how the process unfolds from this point forward. Who is most likely? Being reviewed. First, one of the most common questions seniors are asking right now is simple and understandable. Where do I fit in this picture? Based on the internal guidance reflected in this program's design, the earliest focus is centered on seniors whose household income comes primarily from federal benefits. That includes Social Security retirement, supplemental security income, disability benefits, and survivor benefits. These are households where nearly every dollar already has a job assigned before it arrives. rent or property taxes, utilities, medication, food, transportation. There is little to no buffer built into the month. Income levels matter, but not as a judgment. They are used as a signal of vulnerability. Many of the most financially strained seniors fall under roughly $30,000 per year in total income. Within that group, those receiving closer to $1,300 per month or less were identified as especially stretched. When income drops closer to $1,100 or below, the system recognizes that even small cost increases can destabilize everything. But this review is not only about income totals. Another major factor is stability. Seniors typically do not have the ability to increase income quickly. They cannot add shifts, negotiate raises, or take on new work easily. A fixed benefit provides predictability, but it also means prices rise while income stands still. That difference now matters in the model. In simple terms, the system is looking at who has the least ability to recover if help arrives late. Seniors living primarily on fixed federal benefits fall squarely into that category. This does not guarantee payment, it does not promise timing, but it explains why certain households are being looked at earlier, not because they asked louder, but because waiting costs them more. Why many seniors may move faster without realizing it. There is one quiet advantage many seniors have in this process, and it often goes unnoticed: stability. For years, sometimes decades, many older Americans have had the same direct deposit account, the same benefit source, the same monthly payment pattern. That consistency matters more than it may seem. When federal systems begin reviewing eligibility, one of the biggest slowdowns is mismatched information. Different addresses across agencies, old bank accounts still on file, name changes that were updated in one system but not another. For many seniors, those issues simply don't exist. When identity details, benefit records, and income information already align across Social Security, the IRS, and Treasury databases, the review process becomes much smoother. There is less back and forth, less verification needed, fewer flags that require human review. This doesn't guarantee speed, but it reduces friction. That's why some seniors may see signs of movement earlier than others: small updates inside online portals, confirmation notices, or status changes that happen quietly before any money arrives. It's important to understand this difference. Faster movement does not mean special treatment. It means fewer obstacles. At the same time, slower movement does not mean denial. Many delays are caused by simple issues: an old address, a closed account, or a small data mismatch that needs correcting before payment can move safely. The system is designed to be cautious, and when money is involved, caution protects people from errors that are much harder to fix later. For seniors watching closely, this can feel uneven. But behind the scenes, it is often just a reflection of how clean and consistent the records already are. Progress in this system rarely arrives loudly. It shows up as quiet alignment, and for many seniors, that alignment is already in place. No application required. And why? That's intentional. One of the most important details in this entire update is also one of the easiest to miss. For most seniors, there is nothing you need to apply for. There is no special website, there is no early sign-up list, there is no form that needs to be rushed through. And that is not an accident. This program was intentionally designed to rely on information the government already has: Social Security records, IRS income data, benefit databases that have been built and updated over many years. The goal was to reduce confusion, paperwork, and anxiety, especially for older Americans who have been through complicated programs before. Too often, new relief programs create stress instead of relief. Seniors worry about missing deadlines, filling out forms incorrectly, falling for fake websites. This structure avoids much of that risk by keeping the process largely internal. Eligibility reviews are happening quietly in the background. Files are being evaluated without requiring seniors to chase documentation or prove the same information again and again. That said, there are a few situations where you may hear something. If you've moved recently, if you've changed banks or closed an account, if your records don't match perfectly across systems, in those cases the government may request confirmation, but legitimate requests will only appear inside secure official portals, such as your IRS online account or your My Social Security account. Not by phone calls, not by text messages, not by emails demanding urgency. The absence of an application is a safeguard. It protects seniors from pressure, mistakes, and scams. This process may feel quiet, but quiet in this case is by design. And for many seniors, that quiet structure is exactly what makes this program safer than most. Why this does not mean the money arrives tomorrow. After hearing that a $2,000 rebate has been approved, it's natural for one question to rise above all others. When does the money actually arrive? The honest answer requires patience. What happened overnight was not a button being pressed to instantly send out checks. It was approval for the system to move forward. And those are very different things. Think of this process like a long train that has been sitting on the tracks. For a while, everything was in place, but the signal hadn't changed. That overnight approval was the signal. The train has started moving, slowly, but it is no longer standing still. Before any payment can be issued, several steps must happen in order. Eligibility models must finish running. Records must be matched across multiple federal databases to ensure accuracy. Payment methods must be confirmed, whether that means direct deposit or a mailed check. Only after those steps line up does distribution begin. For some seniors, progress may show up before money does. You might notice small updates inside an online portal, a confirmation message, a status change that signals your file is moving through the system. These quiet signs often appear weeks before any deposit hits a bank account. Others may experience delays, especially if the system detects something that needs verification. An outdated address, a closed account, a mismatch between records. These issues slow the process, but they do not mean denial. The key point is this: slow movement does not mean no movement. This program was designed to move carefully, not dramatically. And while that can test patience, careful movement is what prevents mistakes that are much harder to fix later. Right now, the system is doing exactly what it was approved to do, moving forward, one step at a time. Will this affect your Social Security or other benefits? Another concern many seniors have, and for good reason, is whether receiving this $2,000 rebate could somehow reduce their regular benefits. When you live on fixed income, even the idea of a disruption can feel risky. Here is the key point, explained clearly. This $2,000 payment is not considered earned income. It is not wages. It is not a benefit adjustment. And it is not designed to replace or interfere with anything you already receive. Because this payment is categorized as a tariff-related rebate, it sits outside the formulas used to calculate Social Security retirement benefits, disability payments, or cost of living adjustments. In plain language, receiving it should not reduce your monthly Social Security check. It should not trigger a review of your benefits. It should not interfere with COLA increases. And it is not intended to reopen your file simply because you received it. For seniors on supplemental security income, the concern often feels heavier. SSI has strict rules, and even small financial changes can feel threatening. The guidance makes it clear that the rebate itself is not treated as ongoing income for SSI calculations. However, there is one practical note worth understanding. If a large amount of money sits unused for an extended period, it can eventually matter in certain asset-based evaluations. That's why the quiet advice being shared makes sense. Use the relief thoughtfully. Apply it toward essentials, groceries, utilities, medical costs, overdue bills, repairs that have been delayed. The purpose of this program is to reduce pressure, not create new anxiety. When the money is used to stabilize life, it does exactly what it was intended to do, without putting existing benefits at risk. What you should be doing right now, and what you should not. With so much information circulating, it's easy for seniors to feel like they should be doing something immediately, checking constantly, calling numbers, searching for forms. But in this case, urgency is not your friend. The most important thing you can do right now is actually very simple. Make sure your information is accurate. When you feel comfortable, log into your official federal portals. Check your mailing address. Confirm your direct deposit information. Make sure the bank account on file is still active and correct. Small details, a closed account, an old address, a typo, are among the most common reasons payments get delayed or rerouted. Beyond that, there is no race. There is no hidden form. There is no deadline requiring panic. There is no advantage to refreshing portals every hour. This process is designed to move in stages, and those stages are happening whether you watch them or not. Checking occasionally is enough. Obsessing only creates stress. At the same time, this is a moment to be especially alert to scams. Whenever government money is discussed, bad actors move fast. No legitimate agency will call you demanding your full Social Security number, banking passwords, gift cards, or fees to unlock a payment. Pressure is the warning sign. If someone insists you must act immediately, threatens consequences, or promises faster approval in exchange for information, that is not the government. That is a scam. The healthiest approach right now is calm preparation, accuracy over urgency, awareness over anxiety. This program was built to reduce pressure, not increase it. Staying steady, informed, and patient is not passive. It's exactly how this process is meant to be navigated. When clarity replaces panic, you are already doing the most important thing right: how to use the money, if and when it arrives. When people talk about a $2,000 payment, it's easy for the conversation to drift toward numbers alone. But for seniors living on fixed incomes, this is rarely about extra spending. It's about relief. The quiet guidance surrounding this program reflects that understanding. This rebate was not designed to create lifestyle changes. It was designed to stabilize the basics, the things that quietly create stress month after month when income does not move but prices do. For many seniors, that means catching up on utility bills that were paid late to prioritize medication, catching up on prescriptions that were stretched longer than they should have been, catching up on repairs that were postponed because the budget couldn't absorb them all at once. Using the money for essentials is not just practical, it aligns with how the program was intended to function. For those receiving supplemental security income, this approach also carries an added benefit. Using the funds to meet immediate needs reduces the chance that the money sits untouched long enough to be considered in asset-based evaluations later. Quietly, responsibly using the relief helps preserve stability. It's also important to understand what this money is not meant to do. It is not meant to be hoarded out of fear. It is not meant to create anxiety about doing the wrong thing. And it is not meant to turn into another source of worry. When money has a purpose, it creates calm. When it sits surrounded by uncertainty, it creates stress. The most grounding question to ask yourself is simple. If this relief arrives, what would help me breathe easier next month? That answer looks different for everyone. But in nearly every case, it points back to the same goal: restoring balance to a life that has been stretched thin for too long. That balance, more than the number itself, is what this program is quietly trying to support. Why this moment matters. Even if $2,000 doesn't change everything, it's important to be honest about something that often gets lost in headlines. A $2,000 payment does not solve everything. It does not erase inflation. It does not permanently fix the gap between rising costs and fixed income. And yet, this moment still matters. It matters because of what it represents. For years, many seniors have quietly adjusted without complaint, choosing generic brands, turning the thermostat a little lower than comfortable, spacing out appointments, delaying home repairs, stretching things that shouldn't have to be stretched, often without telling family, because they don't want to worry anyone or feel like a burden. Those sacrifices rarely show up in speeches, but they finally showed up in the data. What changed here was not just a policy detail, it was recognition. Acknowledgement that retirement today is not a season of ease for many people. It is a careful balancing act carried quietly and consistently. This program does not say everything is fixed. It says we see the pressure. And for people who have spent years feeling invisible inside economic conversations, being seen matters. The quiet way this approval happened is part of that message. No spotlight, no performance. Just an internal shift that moves seniors closer to the front because waiting costs them more. Even if the payment arrives slowly, even if the amount feels modest against rising prices. The deeper change is this. The system stopped pretending that fixed income life absorbs inflation the same way as everyone else. That recognition carries weight beyond any single check. It signals that future decisions may be shaped by reality, not assumptions. And for seniors who have carried that reality for a long time, that shift alone is meaningful. Staying steady as things continue to unfold. As this conversation comes to a close, the most important takeaway is not a date on a calendar or a promise of immediate relief. It's understanding where things truly stand and how to move forward without fear. This process is quiet by design. It may feel slow, it may feel uncertain, but slow movement does not mean no movement. In large systems like this, the most meaningful changes often happen long before they become visible. Right now, the system is doing what it was authorized to do. Files are being reviewed, records are being matched, payment pathways are being prepared carefully, step by step. Some seniors may notice signs of progress earlier than others. Some may wait longer. Neither experience means something has gone wrong. What matters most in this moment is staying grounded, staying informed without chasing rumors, staying prepared without panic, staying patient without losing hope. If there is one thing seniors understand better than most, it's endurance. You have lived through economic shifts, policy changes, and financial storms before. You know that clarity, not urgency, is what carries people through uncertainty. This update was never meant to create excitement. It was meant to restore a measure of stability and to acknowledge a pressure that has been quietly carried for years. As more information becomes available, it will arrive the same way this approval did, calmly, carefully, and without spectacle. And when there is real movement worth understanding, it will be worth paying attention to, not because of hype, but because it's grounded in reality. Until then, give yourself permission to exhale. You deserve steadiness, you deserve clarity, and you deserve to move through this moment without fear. The process may be quiet, but it is moving, and staying calm, informed, and patient remains the strongest position you can hold as it continues forward.